Weakened by extreme poverty, lack of solid economic infrastructure, along with frail or untapped growth capacities. Least developed countries are characterized by their acute susceptibility to external economic shocks, disasters, and communicable diseases, making financial resources the lifeblood required to pull LDCs out of poverty and towards sustainable growth. During a high-level event held on Tuesday at the UN's 4th Conference on Least Developed Countries in Istanbul, government leaders and private sector experts noted that the lack of financial resources is a fundamental cause for a country to be an LDC.
Is that it's urgent, essential for the LDC support fund to be endowed with appropriate resources so as to be able to support such initiatives, without which in the middle run, countries with a worrying situation could very well be faced with total devastation.
All of the resources we can put into reaching the most vulnerable children are innovative in the sense that we're not doing enough of it now. And as I mentioned, a study by UNICEF shows that investing in the most vulnerable children is not only the right thing to do in humanitarian terms, and as you said, they are the future of these nations, but because their needs are greater, when you invest in them, you get bigger results. And our study shows that it is therefore cost-effective. It is perhaps the most cost-effective way of helping the future of nations.
I don't think the question really is if they at some point are given all the money in the world, because if they're going to mobilize the resources that is needed for development, then a huge part of those resources also must come from the countries themselves. What we're talking about, domestic resource mobilization. Many of these countries are extremely rich in resources, and but we should also, as donor countries, assist to manage those resources in a good way that could benefit all people, and that not only goes with better management in the least developed countries themselves, but also improving the international financial system and how our own companies behave in these countries.
According to the World Bank, finding new financial mechanisms such as leveraging investment from non-traditional donors, emerging economies, creating tax incentive programs, and secularizing remittances to help build economic infrastructure harnessed by political will and country ownership will help LDCs break their poverty cycles.
What's really key is to mention the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, in the opening of this conference. He mentioned that a nation that cannot feed its children cannot thrive. And scientific evidence shows that in the first 1,000 days of life, that's the 9 months in the womb and the first 2 years, that's the period at which a child's brain develops. And it's important that that child receives full nutrition. And the World Food Programme have been very actively engaged in feeding humanitarian emergencies around the world for many years. But we now recognize, based on this scientific evidence, that if we don't provide the nutrition at that point, then those children will not develop, and then their nations will not develop. So that is one of the key messages.
Experts noted the potential of South-South cooperation as a key force multiplier in the development of the world's 48 least developed countries.
Poverty is not a localized issue. Poverty is not a territorial issue. Poverty is a global issue. Poverty is a human issue. And we need to deal with it collectively. So while we are dealing with the least developing countries, we should also look at LDC as let's deliver collectively. And that's what we should be looking at. As far as India is concerned, we give aid despite the fact that millions of people in our country are poor. We have over the years given $4.8 billion in terms of aid to the least developed countries. We have opened lines of credit which help the least developed world, especially the African countries.
Experts noted that the anticipated operational framework for LDCs should include promoting domestic resource mobilization, enhancing official development assistance while addressing domestic debt problems, and inviting foreign direct investment with South-South cooperation as a key engine for development. Afaf Konca, South South News, Istanbul, Turkey.